and we do officially have to wait till 7 o'clock. So enjoy your neighbor. We have a little under 2 minutes. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We will get started now.
I've hit it. I would like to call this meeting to order. It is now 7 o'clock. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, led by the Whispering Winds Chorus. I'd like to give a special thank you to our chorus members and their parents for being here tonight. They did a wonderful job. May I have roll call, please?
Mrs. Baker,
Here.
Mrs. Greenberg,
Here.
Mrs. Christensen,
Here.
Mrs. Case is not able to attend this evening. Mr. Pantera.
Here.
Next on the agenda is approval of agenda. Dr. Bales?
Thank you. Items approved by consent will not come up for discussion during the meeting, but will be approved when the agenda is adopted. This is possible since members of the governing board receive the agenda along with backup materials at least 24 hours prior to the meeting and have time to review and consider all items. Prior to the agenda being adopted, members of the governing board or audience may ask that an item be removed from the consent agenda and brought to the floor for discussion at the appropriate place on the agenda. I would like to offer the agenda as posted with the following exceptions. Item G3, G5, G8, and G9 will move to items for approval, and they will be the first 4 items under items for approval. And with that, we recommend the agenda as posted with those exceptions.
Does any member of the governing board wish to have an item removed from the consent agenda? Okay. Does any member of the audience wish to have an item removed from the consent agenda? Yeah, it's number 5 spin. Yep. Ms. Greenberg, may I have a motion to approve the meeting agenda and the recommended consent agenda items?
So moved.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. The motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda, we have governing board statements. Ms. Christensen?
Welcome, everybody. As a reminder, we work for you, and we are just so happy to serve the district and all of the people here. We had a very busy week this week, including I got a chance to go to the legislature to listen to some education bills and talk to some of our legislators, which was a very good experience. And I would encourage any of you to also join in that process because a lot of these bills that are coming down the pike are very important for education. We also got a chance to tour some schools today. And so, well, I got a chance to tour 2 schools. I think you guys went a little earlier this week, and it was such a wonderful experience. I got a little pen to for my journey, and so it was wonderful. This is from Cactus View Elementary School, and it was such a wonderful experience to be there and to see the elementary kids, and I got hugs, so that was really nice. It made my day. I also got a hug from the principal, which was especially nice. And then I also got to tour Eagle Ridge Elementary, which just some amazing things are happening in PV schools, and that's one of the joys of having this position here is just to see our kids, how they grow, and all the exciting different things that are happening in each and every one of our PV schools.
Thank you. Mrs. Greenberg? Good, okay. Mr. Pantera?
Yes, thank you. I have to agree with Sandra that visiting the schools this week was a real joy. Went to 4 or 5 schools. Some of them I went in and some of the students said, "Hey, hi, Mr. Pantera." And I'm like, "Oh, hello," you know. Yeah, that was pretty cool. I really like that. So many things we saw. It reminds me of when my daughter went to Foothills Elementary School. She was in 1st grade, and she's very smart, my daughter. You know, and so she was way ahead of her class in reading at that time. This is before the Gifted had the cluster programs, any of the flexing programs. And so the 1st grade teacher got together with the 2nd grade teacher and said, "Hey, let's change our schedules a little bit so we both have reading at the same time." So when my daughter was having reading, she would go to that 2nd grade classroom and finally get the challenge she needed to progress at her level, what she needed. That's equity in action right there, you know, trying to do what you can for each student to make it happen. And I've seen it in all these schools I've gone to. There's all kinds of programs to help people get where they want. Whether it's the Connect program at Eagle Ridge or Cactus View, you've got the Journey programs at Mountain Trail Middle School. You've got interesting electives like the forensic medicine one they have at Mountain Trails. They've got American Sign Language, all these things. I mean, I can go on and on, but I mean, you don't want me to go on and on, do you? No. I'm just saying, it's nice to know this idea, this equity of getting everybody to where they need to go, that high level, in their own way, is still alive here in PV, and I'm very happy about that when I see it out in the schools.
Thank you, Mr. Pantera. I also had the opportunity to visit 2 schools, and I got to see 2 performances. I attended Sandpiper's Musica de Noche, and that was such a fun performance. There were so many families there. The kids were really into it. It was so cool to hear them do all of their songs in Spanish. I was also fortunate enough to attend the Paradise Valley High School's production of The Yellow Boat. I mean, it was truly incredible from the acting to the stage design, sound, direction, lights. It really told the story of Benjamin and his family so beautifully. Thank you to Ian Dennis for introducing me to some of the stars in the show. In addition, I had the pleasure of touring both Cactus View and Eagle Ridge. thank you to Megan Cameron and Christina Deek for taking time to show me around their campuses. It was by far the highlight of my week. I loved seeing the educators and the students engaged in all kinds of learning activities. Both schools have unique programs to fit the needs of each of their communities, which was so cool to see. I loved the culture at each school and how even the students were excited to see their principals, and the principals knew them by name and they came up and hugged them. We truly have amazing schools, students, teachers, and staff, and I look forward to touring all the schools in the district. So that was the highlight of my week. Thank you. Oh. And next on the agenda is Dr. Bales.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Baker. At this time, I would like to invite the governing board to join me in front of the dais as we have the opportunity to recognize some staff for awards and recognitions, and our MC tonight will be Mr. Droege.
Good evening, President Pro Tem Baker, governing board members, Dr. Bales, members of cabinet, and attendees both in person and virtual. Tonight, we have several recognitions to share with you. This evening, we'll be inviting our honorees to the front of the room for their recognition and photo. Please make your way to the front of the room when I call your name. Our first honorees this evening completed a rigorous process to earn the elite status of being a National Board Certified Teacher. Tonight, we're honoring one teacher who earned her national board certification and 13 teachers who've completed the process to maintain their NBCT certification. First, from Sonoran Sky Elementary School, Anita Kreider. Next, from Mercury Mine Elementary School, Blaine Beatty. From North Canyon High School, Candace Davis. From Pinnacle High School, Dana Phelps. Part of PV Schools Language Acquisition, Jennifer Stoltz. Also part of Language Acquisition, Christina Kroner. Representing James P. Lee Early Childhood Learning Center, unable to attend this evening, is Maureen Moritz. From Paradise Valley High School, Michelle Foster. Of Sunset Canyon Elementary School, Michelle Godfrey. Part of Liberty Elementary School, Monica Kroll. From Vista Verde Middle School, Pega Ayudzabde. From Larkspur Elementary School, Rosanna Martinez. Representing Cactus View Elementary School, Tina Vendegna. And from Pinnacle Peak Preparatory, Wendy Okraski. While we gather for the group photo, if there's any family or friends that would like to also take a photo, you can come up close to the podium. Next is the Paradise Valley Education Support Professional of the Month. PVSEA President, Ms. Michelle Courtright, will make the presentation.
As the president of PVSEA, I always enjoy this part because we have remarkable ESPs in the district. This month, we are recognizing Yvette Walski. She is a record secretary at Greyhawk. And I don't know if people know what record secretaries do. Their job is to take care of all the attendance. They make all the phone calls. They verify that teachers have taken attendance, and sometimes that's not always an easy task. They answer the phone. They are the first person that parents meet, and parents are not always in a great mood. So it's their job to de-escalate before transferring them to who they need to talk to. They are in charge of making sure that the grades are put in, and if by chance a teacher misses the window, they get the paper and they have to input all of those. They work with IT when things are not working. They multitask when every child comes up there. Usually it's a record secretary that talks to them. So it takes quite a special person to do this. They have to do it with a smile. And I'm hearing Yvette can multitask very easily. She does everything with a wonderful attitude and a smile. She is willing to help out even if it's not her job. And the students and the staff say they could not run the school without her. So it is with great pleasure that we welcome her up and celebrate her this evening.
And last this evening is the recipient of the Paradise Valley Education Association's Recognition of Professional Standards Award for Teachers. The honoree will be introduced this evening by Ms. Susie Seep, PVEA President.
Good evening, President Pro Tem Baker, Dr. Bales, Cabinet, and Board. It's not on the agenda, but I'd first like to thank all of those National Board Certified teachers. Wow. I was an ESL teacher. Those people have coached me. They've inspired me. They've trained me. Wasn't a person up here that didn't make a difference in my career. And I'm so grateful for the efforts they put in to achieve that certification. But I'm here tonight to recognize Mrs. Brenda Batres. She is the drama teacher at Horizon High School. And I met her when she was a student teacher in my last year at Horizon. So she's only been in the district 3 years. But what I'm so proud of is that she was nominated by a district employee who works at another school and nominated her as a parent. That's Loretta Sotelo from Powell Primary, who is also an amazing, amazing teacher. But Loretta says that Mrs. Batres goes above and beyond her high school students, above and beyond for her high school students at a time when they need it the most. She's a light in a storm. For all students in her care, not only does she put on 2 plays, 1 a musical, no small task, every year, but she stays late every afternoon. She comes in every Saturday for weeks at a time to prepare. It isn't just her amazing ability to get the best out of everyone involved in her shows, it's much, much more. She opens her doors to students at lunch so they can gather, listen to music, and have a warm, caring environment to make new friends or be with the friends they already have. This is invaluable to students who are shy, new to the school, or just looking for a place to belong. Her school is always welcoming and is a place for kids to be themselves. The community she creates has allowed them to find their special talents and build confidence in who they are as students and as human beings. Mrs. Batres is wonderful, and she's a part of our community. We are so grateful for her, and I'm so grateful to be her colleague. I met her as a student teacher, and I can't believe how she's blossomed in 3 years. Thank you to Brenda, and thank you to you. Drama kids want to be in the picture. Get up there. Get up there.
And that, President Pro Tem Baker, concludes this evening's awards and recognitions. Call to the Public is about to convene. This portion of today's meeting allows the public the opportunity to address the governing board. Although state law does not require that the governing board hold a call to the public, the Paradise Valley Unified School District and its board have chosen to do so because we believe it's important to hear about concerns and issues from our community. While Call to the Public is not designed to be a discussion, the board is here to listen. Due to Arizona open meeting law, the governing board cannot respond to, discuss, or take any action on items brought up during this time. However, staff members may be directed to get back to you and address individual concerns. As a reminder, the point of this and every board meeting is to accomplish the business at hand, and to be able to do so in an open and collaborative way. All in attendance are expected to observe meeting rules, as well as rules of politeness and decorum, so that we may serve as an example to our students that issues can be discussed in a respectful and civil manner.
Next on the agenda is Call to the Public. Tonight, we have 5 people who have submitted comment cards prior to the start of the meeting. Each speaker will have 3 minutes for remarks. First up, we have Melissa Schwartz, followed by Hera Dembowski.
Good evening, Governing Board, President Pro Tem Baker, and Dr. Bales. Mrs. Christensen, you spoke in front of the House Education Committee this week in support of HB 2458, which would allow students, parents, and school employees to file a complaint against any teacher they thought was providing, quote, instruction that promotes or advocates for specified concepts relating to race or ethnicity, unquote. Teachers would be forced to pay a fine of $5,000 if they were determined to be in violation of this law. You also said you do not support diversity, equity, and inclusion. The PV School Strategic Plan states as a strategic goal, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is stated to mean, quote, develop, respect, and value diverse thinking and experiences that lead to safe, equitable, and inclusive environments for all, unquote. This is exactly what we want for all our classrooms. We want our kids to value and respect different ideas and perspectives. We want them to see and understand that not everyone has the same experiences and backgrounds. Equity is giving each student what they need to be successful, not just blanketed services for everyone regardless of need. Not all kids need speech therapy or help from the reading specialist, and that's okay. We have highly qualified educators that work with kids every day and can identify when they need some support or they are ready to be challenged. Inclusion is making sure all students are included. In education, inclusion specifically often refers to special education students and English language learners. So you say you are against DEI. You need to be specific and tell us exactly what you are against. Do you not support celebrating and recognizing differences that exist within the American culture? Because that is diversity. Do you not support giving each student exactly what they need to be successful? Because that is equity. Do you not support special education students participating in general education settings whenever possible? Because that is inclusion. As an elected member of our governing board, you have a responsibility to ensure that all our students receive the best education possible and all of the supports they need to graduate. So yes, as you said, we need to set the bar high for all of them, unquote. But we as adults have the responsibility of making sure each student is valued and adequately supported along the way. That is a PV education. And that is what the educators in PV do every day. And yet you are supporting legislation that opens the door to punishing our teachers and the district. Where is your responsibility to know what is exactly going on in our schools?
Thank you. Next is Hera Dembowski, followed by Jennifer Oriza.
Good evening, President Pro Tem Baker and Governing Board, Dr. Bales and Cabinet. Thank you for allowing call to the public tonight. My remarks are based on watching our House Appropriations Subcommittee hearing this week, in which Mrs. Christensen presented an argument about putting a hold on our aggregate expenditure limit, but just for a year. And it made me really concerned about the things that you were saying to our legislatures because you, although elected by a portion of our district, you represent all of us, all of our students, all of our parents, all of our families. And I don't think that the things that you were saying were accurate. The AEL needs to be done away with in our state. It's not just a one-year fix. But you also happened to mention when you were speaking about our $14 million budget issue, you also mentioned that we have decreased enrollment. Nothing that you were saying was really promoting Paradise Valley Unified School District. And also when you spoke, you said you are a parent of a student in the district, but you also said you are a newly elected governing board member, although you're not speaking on behalf of the board. I think that is a very gray area when you are speaking in a subcommittee meeting. Are you representing the district and the governing board? Are you speaking just your personal opinions? I think as an elected official, someone who is on a ballot and elected by the voters, you have an obligation to represent this governing board now. And so for you to speak almost out of turn when you're talking about how our kids will go online if we don't get rid of the AEL, which I don't think is true. You talked about mental health issues if our kids go back to online learning, but yet you get rid of SEL and you oppose it. It's very conflicting messages that you are sending, and I realize you're new to the governing board, so I wanted to come and share my thoughts because you represent me, like you represent everyone in this room. So just to point out those things. And in terms of the AEL, I hope that our governing board, as elected officials who are supporting education, that you would do everything you can to abolish it. We don't need it in our state, and it really hinders what we can do for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. And up next, Jennifer Ariza, followed by Justin Price. And I didn't say this before, but as a reminder, please state your first and last name when you come to the podium. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Ariza, and I want to thank each of you for your time that you put into your positions because I know it takes a lot to do what you do. My concern as a parent in the district is the education and welfare of the students. As I stand here tonight, I want to declare that pornography should not be allowed in our schools. I am hopeful that 2023 will be the year that we as a community take a stand against approving any additional pornographic material for our students. I am concerned about the increasing sexualization of our students, particularly as it's being pushed to lower and lower grades. I would like to ask each of our board members if you've researched the effects of pornography on children, and if you haven't yet, I encourage you to do so. I also want to bring to your attention that there were at least 349 K-12 educators arrested on child sex crimes in the United States last year. This averages to almost an arrest every day on crimes ranging from grooming to child pornography to raping students. This included 5 principals, 3 assistant principals, 290 teachers, 26 substitute teachers, and 25 teachers' aides spanning nearly every state in the country. At least 262 of the arrests, or 75%, involved alleged crimes against students. Now, those numbers are probably low because those were the ones that were publicized. I wanted to highlight this for the board and ask each of you if you think that increasing the sexualization of our students is actually helping to protect them. Do you think that continuing to add approved pornographic material and material that sexualizes children is something that we should keep doing in our district in 2023? Or are we doing our educators and students a disservice by allowing this to continue? I would encourage each of you to give this serious thought as you review material to approve this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up is Justin Price, followed by Lily Gresham.
May I bring guests? Yeah. All right, good evening. My name is Justin Price. I'm here with my fellow candidate support providers. We're here to, we also wanted to celebrate and honor our 13 nationally board certified teachers who maintain their certificate, and Anita Kreider, our newest nationally board certified teacher. These teachers have analyzed their teaching practice and critically examined evidence of their students' learning before finally submitting that work for assessment. These teachers exemplify traits of accomplished teaching we would all like to see in all educators. In addition to recognizing them tonight, we'd like to invite you to join education leaders from around the state in attending the 14th annual Celebration of Accomplished Teaching on April 1st. This semi-formal event, hosted by the Arizona K-12 Center and the Arizona Education Foundation, gives proper context to the achievement these teachers have completed, and your attendance would show not just your support for these teachers and the National Board Certification Program, but show how this group of educators is part of something bigger, part of a force for positive change in Arizona. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker is Lily Gresham.
Hi, my name is Lily Gresham. February is Black History Month. Does Paradise Valley Unified School District have any curriculum that's taught in our schools that time their lesson plans to include or highlight any important African Americans' roles in history? Tom Horn, the leader of the Arizona Department of Education, in January, promised to eradicate teaching on diversity and equity and eliminate the use of social and emotional learning in Arizona schools. He also eliminated the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Department within the Arizona Department of Education. Last week, the Florida Department of Education banned African American Studies from being taught to students due to its political agenda. This was after the Don't Say Gay bill. Florida may be the most publicized state, but many states are also with lightning speed moving towards a world where non-white people are completely erased from public instruction at schools. North Dakota restricts any sexually explicit material from all public libraries, with librarians being fined or going to jail. Sexually explicit material includes any content of any sexual identity, gender identity, or deviant behavior. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Book banning predates the 21st century. From 1954, the Supreme Court ruling to desegregate schools, white parents and legislatures have treated classrooms as battlegrounds for their ideological wars. Book banning is typically under the guise of minimizing the impact of CRT. But what is CRT? Banning books and curriculums that encourage honest reckoning with history and gender ideology, or racial, sexual, or political content, and a celebration of our differences. School board members are the last line of defense in keeping as much autonomy and truth as possible in the classroom, such as through curriculums that go through them for approval. School boards serve as political subdivisions of the state, and this is important because our state can override, hopefully, decisions and I don't want to use some legislatures are introducing legislation to limit the power of school boards. School boards are statewide officials that dictate what resources young people have access to in school.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Dr. Bales.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Baker, governing board members, cabinet, and community. In PV schools, we engage, inspire, and nurture students through high-quality instruction, meaningful educational opportunities, and dynamic learning experiences. One of these experiences was North Ranch.
Dr. Bill,
Want to speak on the item, correct?
on the community ed.
Up to you. Okay.
Sorry, we have one more final comment for Wendy Mahler. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Wendy Mahler. Good evening, governing board, cabinet members. I just wanted to speak about community education. I know that's on the agenda tonight. And while I know it is necessary to approve it, I was just wanting to put it out to the community and specifically to the teachers union that in order to help teachers that might be in a financial situation due to the increase, that maybe there's a way they can come up with a scholarship fund to help out those teachers in need. And likewise, if it's legally possible for PTOs, PTAs, or the UPC to maybe create scholarships for parents that might be in need due to the possible increase that you might be voting on this evening. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Dr. Bales.
All right, so tonight's mission moment, was talking about some of the experiences that our young people have. And one of these experiences is North Ranch Elementary School's participation in Word Masters Challenge. North Ranch sixth grade team scored an impressive 188 points out of a possible 200 in this national vocabulary competition. Not only did they achieve the highest honors recognition, they also placed 8th in the nation. Congratulations, North Ranch sixth grade. Our district spelling bee was held last month at North Canyon High School, and this spelling sport was not for the faint of heart. With a 450-word school spelling bee study list to memorize, students also had to have a brief knowledge of the Words of Champions list, which had approximately 4,000 words. The competition was arduous. PV Schools is proud of the 4th through 6th grade students who competed at the preliminary school level as well as the district level. Congratulations to the district winner, Anish Kulkarni, Desert Trails 5th grade, and runner-up, Tamtan, Desert Springs 6th grade. Anish will compete at the Arizona State Spelling Bee on March 18th and represent PV Schools. Best of luck, Anish. I'm also happy to announce that beginning in February, our district newsletter will be expanding to reach stakeholders in a much larger way. This publication provides important information and celebrations related to PV Schools, our students, staff, and community. Currently enrolled families in our district, as well as our staff, won't need to subscribe anymore. However, if you are a community member without a student at one of our schools, you'll want to visit our district website newsroom and subscribe by clicking on the orange bell icon. Our students and staff do amazing things, and I look forward to sharing this news with more and more people. Our annual 5K is Saturday, and our PV Schools Community Fun Run or Walk is right around the corner. This event, encouraging active lifestyles among our staff, families, and community members, is a favorite among many in the community, and we're glad to be able to bring it to everyone together again in person. To sign up, visit www.runsignup.com and search for PV Schools Community 5K Fun Run and Walk. The event takes place this Saturday. Also, coming up soon, Unplug and Play. PV Schools works hard to promote health and wellness, and continuing the tradition is our annual Unplug and Play weekend. During the dates of February 10th through the 12th, we encourage families to unplug from their electronic devices and get outdoors or find fun family activities to do together away from a screen. To support this endeavor, PV Schools will provide a homework-free weekend during those dates, and tests will not be scheduled on Monday, February 13th. Another opportunity to check the PV Pulse is coming up. PV Pulse is our formerly known as Bagels with the Board and provides an opportunity for parents, guardians, and community members to meet with me, our cabinet members, and governing board members in an informal setting throughout the district schools. This event supports the PV Schools strategic plan, promotes community strength and collaboration within the district. PV Pulse is held at different locations each quarter to make it as convenient as possible for the community to attend. Our next event will be held at Hidden Hills Elementary School on February 9th, that's next week, from 10 to 11 a.m. PV Schools Universe is a place for our youngest and newest students. On Monday, February 13th, the Community Education Department is hosting a Preschool Universe Parent Information Open House for the 23-24 school year. This is a virtual open house, and parents can sign up by visiting the latest news section on the district homepage. PV Schools is committed to your child's success and development and understands that deciding on the right preschool environment for your child can be challenging. So let us help guide you in making the right choice for your family. And last tonight, Pinnacle High School visual arts students, Elaine Novi, 10th grader, and Emily Pye, 9th grader, each received a Silver Key distinction in the 2023 Scholastic Art and Writing Awards competition. Elena received her distinction for her colored pencil drawing, quote, "Sweet Innocence," end quote, and Emily received her distinction for her painting, quote, "A Study of Peach." The Scholastic Art and Writing Awards is the country's longest running regional and national creative art and writing competition. Congratulations to both these students on a job well done. And those are my comments tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Bales. Now we move on to, next on the agenda is item H1, which was previously G3. And we have do we have a card on that? Yes, number 3, this one. Yep. So we have a comment from Lily Gresham on this one. This was consent agenda G3. It's been moved to H1. And you have 3 minutes.
This is consideration approval of non-administrative certified personnel actions.
Okay, is that the one for the certified board actions for revisions and pay for I don't know, teachers and other personnel in the schools?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So I have a question about when I was looking at the pay scales and revisions, I noticed that the ROTC at Shadow Mountain was getting $55,865. That seems, and also someone else was getting $30,874. And that is the highest pay on both of those sheets. And I just thought, well, wow, does ROTC get that much money? I mean, and where does that money come from? I mean, and why are they only at Shadow Mountain? That was just, I mean, I just jumped out at the page at me. I mean, I don't see any ROTC, and that just seems like an awful lot to pay. I mean, I think they get paid more than maybe administrators even. I don't know. Okay, so is that the only agenda item right now for me to speak on? Because I've got 3 others.
Okay, that's the one right now. Thank you.
And just a point of clarification, we do have a junior Air Force ROTC program at Shadow Mountain High School. We do work with the ROTC programs to determine salary and benefits as those are employees that are, they become employees of the district, but it's a contract with the Air Force. Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve the consideration and approval of non-administrative certified personnel action?
So moved.
Oh, do any board members wish to make a comment on that? It was, yeah. Nope. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Next, we have H2, formerly G5, and we also have a comment card on that from Lily Gresham. And this was the consideration and approval of marketing and communications administrative ESP employee travel requests. And you have 3 minutes.
What I have for number 5 that was on the agenda online was the consideration and approval for painting products and services. That's what was online for agenda number 5.
That was
I was under H,
H.
sorry. That was
Yes,
under H. Okay.
your card
Okay, so-
identified G,
Okay, we're doing
Five.
G.
previously
G5.
G5.
Okay. Travel requests. It's confusing. Is this the one about the employee travel requests to go to conferences?
This is,
Okay, so there's one specific employee request for one person to go on a trip to Minnesota or
that's
3
not,
days?
excuse me, Lily, that's not this item. This
Oh.
item previously G5,
Okay,
H2 now is employee travel for 2 employees from the MARCOM 2 training in Orlando, Florida.
okay, no, I'm good with that.
Okay, then, may I?
Okay, thank you. Then may I have a motion to approve H2, formerly G5, which is the consideration and approval of marketing and communications administrative ESP employee travel requests.
So moved.
Does any board member have a comment on this one?
I do. I would like to have discussion on that item. So it is my understanding that we're sending 2 individuals from marketing for a 3-day conference. I think check-in is 4. Dr. Bells, you corrected me. I had some questions on that item. And my concern with that was that there are online options for this conference. And I know one of the, I have been really looking at our priorities, and this particular conference doesn't touch student achievement. It doesn't get dollars in the classroom. And I do understand that it is important to have a good website. I do understand that. However, the timing of this with some of our financial concerns, I just think we should have a discussion on this item and to see if there's alternative options such as the online version of this conference.
Yeah, any other board member?
Well,
wish to make a
marketing is
comment?
very important to get students back to our district. We talk about the big problem, not having enough students in our district. And marketing and working on the website is one huge tool to get these kids back. Doesn't matter how good our academics are until we have students here to do the academics with. So I find it to be a very valuable asset to the district for that reason.
Mrs. Greenberg?
I was essentially going to say pretty much the same thing that Mr. Pantero said. I am under the impression that there have been, we have been doing some of the online classes, but the request here is for something that's more concentrated and presumably will get us to the next level. So I would hope that's what it does.
Thank you, Mrs. Greenberg. And I just wanted to add, I believe they come back and then give training to staff. And so it's like return on investment or,
Generally, that's the expectation. This is not something that they're probably going to train others to do. This is a level
but they
of,
keep us from,
their training will hopefully allow us to lower future costs in some of our support services that we pay. We right now pay the highest level of support in implementing the website. We started a year ago, right, in this
Right.
new website. And so we have a pretty expensive, we believe we've got the staffing capacity with the right training in PD to give them some extra training and to be able to then take over some of those services and lower our costs in the future.
okay. Ms. Greenberg.
It also seems to me if some of the concern that Mrs. Christensen has is time involved, if they're doing it online, they're in class anyway. So there's, that sort of evens out that way, I should say. It's not that they're going to be on the job. They're going to be taking an online class. So.
Thank you. Any other, Ms. Christensen?
Yeah. My concern wasn't the time, it was more of dollars spent. I believe this is coming out of our M&O budget, which is same, and correct me if I'm wrong, but
This
same.
comes out of the advertising budget that advertising dollars we collect from advertising on the buses. And it's been designated for that. Ms.
Okay.
Berrigan, do you have any clarifications you want to add to that?
No clarification, that is the funding source.
Okay. And it was just my, as I was looking into this particular conference, there was an online conference that was less expensive. And I do understand, I mean, I was in IT, so I do understand the difference between attending in person and online. However, if we are really looking to be fiscally responsible, I just thought it would just do the district a disservice if we didn't look at all options in this case, because with the online, I believe it was approximately 300 versus approximately 800 for tuition, but there's also, with the online, there's not travel expenses, there's not airfare and food and accommodations. So that was my concern, not necessarily the time, but.
Thank you, Mrs. Christensen. Anyone else? Okay, so all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes with 3 ayes and 1 nay. Next, we have H3, formerly G8, and we also have a comment card on that from Lily Gresham. And this one is the consideration and approval of curriculum and instruction administrative certified employee travel requests.
Okay, so that's the one for the conference, for the IB coordinator?
That is correct.
Okay. And it's being paid by IB and M&O money?
That is correct.
And it's for 3 days?
Yes.
And it costs, I don't know. But does the one person really need to go to that? I mean, how many IB programs and schools, I mean, if the money's coming from that funding, couldn't that be used better? I mean, instead of just sending one person? That was, just wanted to know. That's all.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve H3, formerly G8, which is the consideration and approval of curriculum and instruction administrative certified employee travel request?
So moved.
Do any board members have a comment on this? Ms. Christensen?
Yes, I also had similar concerns as Ms. Gresham. However, Dr. Bales was kind enough to provide me more information than what was provided, and I would like Dr. Bells to provide that information to us if possible, or some of it, just a summary, because it gave me a better understanding rather than just the line item. And I do understand now the purpose of the trip. So, Dr. Bells, put him on the spot.
Dr. Corson, you probably have those words handier than I do. I know you're looking at me and smiling, so would you help us out here?
Yeah, certainly, Dr. Bales. Ms. Christensen, this particular conference is what's called Leading and Learning. It's tailored for leaders of IB programs. We currently have our International Baccalaureate program at North Canyon High School. Mr. Case is the coordinator of that program. And North Canyon is preparing for a 5-year evaluation next year, which is where the IB program officials come out to the school and they evaluate and work collectively and collegially with the administration to create a plan. This particular conference will help leaders of IB programs throughout the country, including for North Canyon High School, to develop a plan, set new goals, and begin to come back and work with their teachers to prepare them not only for the evaluation, but for a successful program moving forward.
Thank you, Dr. Corson. Any other board members have a comment?
I have a question. Don't we have feeder schools that also have IB programs, like some of the middle schools and even some elementary schools?
We absolutely do. We have Quail Run Elementary, which offers a pre-IB program. And then we at Vista Verde have what we call a middle school years program that's also part of the 9th and 10th grade levels at North Canyon High School. The program in particular that we speak about is really what's considered the diploma program, which is tailored for 11th and 12th grade students at North Canyon High School.
It's my understanding that as students that go through this program, when they get into college, don't they have a much, much higher chance of success of completing college and getting the degrees they want there?
Yeah, absolutely. The IB program really prepares our students to be highly successful at very competitive universities and colleges throughout the country. It's considered one of the premier programs throughout the country.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it sounds like a good draw to get more students to our district when we have these premier programs like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pantera and Dr. Corson. Any other comment? Oh, Mrs. Greenberg.
Yeah, and I just want to remind her, well, for those of you who don't know, we are only allowed to have IB at one school. That is an international requirement. And we also, correct me if I'm wrong, we're the first district in Arizona to be a K-12 IB district. I think there's a handful of others who are now. But it is, it's not just, it is a prestigious program, but it is a very rigorous program, as Mr. Pantera was saying. And I think anything we can do to support extending that rigor, and this seems to be a good way to do that, as well as help prepare for the evaluation next year. I think it's a great way to use our travel to IB M&O dollars.
Thank you, Mrs. Greenberg. Anyone else? Okay, so all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Next item on our agenda is H4, formerly G9, which is Acceptance of Student Activities Fund Financial Report. We have one card on this. Lily Gresham, you have 3 minutes.
I just, I printed out the student activity statement of revenue and expenditures, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 5 high schools on here, and the most money from revenues and expenditures and balance is by far Horizon High School. It had a beginning balance in December of $535,594, and it spent, I don't know, didn't spend a lot, but it has now $614,000 compared to North Canyon. North Canyon's beginning balance was $158,000. So Horizon had $535,000 and North Canyon had $158,000. That seems, I mean, maybe they have more students. I don't know. It just seemed like a big difference. I guess it's probably because they have more students. I would hope so, because that's a big difference between 158,000 and 530, like $500,000. So that's all. Just wanted to point that out.
Thank you.
Perhaps Mrs. Berrigan can explain what that fund actually is and how the funds get into.
I can. Just in general, very simplified, student activities is the funds that students raise in the school district and students spend, and they have a student council that will vote on those things. And some school sites have larger funds there and some school sites have smaller funds there, but they raise the funds that they need to do the activities that are necessary.
And an additional clarification, the student government and the yearbook are probably the two largest student activity funds on each high school campus. They do run a couple $100,000 through their activities when they plan for prom, homecoming events, things like that are very expensive. And as well as the yearbook, that's and a very expensive endeavor as well. And then all of our high schools have many, many clubs. I know when I was on campus, there was nearly 100 different clubs, and they each have their own line that they are sometimes collecting money for and doing things. So it adds up, and it does add up very quickly. But I know that our high school principals are committed to working with the sponsors and spending that down and making things as affordable as possible for our students and spending their money that they've earned.
Thank you, Mrs. Berrigan and Dr. Bales. May I have a motion to approve H4, formerly G9, the acceptance of Student Activities Fund financial report?
So moved.
Do any board members have comments on this? Mrs. Christensen?
Yes, I actually noticed the same thing that Ms. Grisham noticed, but I do know that Horizon, for instance, has a nationally recognized choir program, and they do performances throughout the year, and there's a lot of concessions, and they sell out every year, and so I think that may have contributed to the larger increase at Horizon High School than some of the others.
Thank you, Mrs. Christensen. Anyone else? Okay, so all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Okay. Next on the agenda for items of approval, Dr. Bales?
Thank you, President Pro Tem Baker, governing board members, cabinet, and guests. Tonight, we present a new memorandum of understanding for compensating homebound services. To create a more consistent process for placing homebound students, the district and the Paradise Valley Education Association agreed to establish an addenda in the amount of $3,000 for one individual in the district to be responsible for accepting and reviewing applications and communicating with parents regarding placement. This addenda may be split. It is another large task, so 2 or 3 of our individuals may split the $3,000. This is in lieu of 43 different nurses trying to facilitate the placement process for homebound services. So we do recommend approval.
Thank you, Dr. Bales. We have no public comment cards. May I have a motion to approve the new MOU to the Certified Bargaining Agreement with PVEA for Homebound Coordinator Addendum?
So moved.
Thank you. Any governing board member wish to make a comment? Mr. Pin, no, okay. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is H6, Dr. Bales.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Baker, governing board members, cabinet, and guests. Tonight, Dr. Jaros will present for approval the proposed rate increases to community education programs for the 23-24 school year. And I would just remind everybody that these are not easy recommendations to make. Dr. Jaros?
Thank you, President Pro Tem, governing board members, Superintendent Bales, cabinet. Anybody else I may have missed? I apologize for having a moment there. Tonight, I present to you a second reading of the proposed increases to our community education programs for preschool and childcare. These increases, as Dr. Bales mentioned, are difficult to make, as we know the impact that they have on our families, both within the community and with our employees that use these programs. especially today as prices are increasing all around us. This is why we have not raised rates in the past between 4 to 10 years, depending on the program. However, at this time, these increases are necessary for us to continue offering these programs. So the proposed increases are the same as they were presented at the last governing board meeting, and we recommend approval. And I will answer any questions at this time.
I have a question. On the, pardon me?
Yeah, let's do a motion first.
Oh, well,
Yep.
yeah.
May I have a motion to approve the proposed community education rate increases for community education programs?
So moved.
Okay, we have no public comment cards on that. Mr. Pantera?
Sorry. No, it's, when I was looking through the presentation you gave that was given last week, a very excellent presentation, I might add. I was looking at that, the discount given to, employees. It said 20%, but when I was crunching the numbers, it was more like 19%. Was that because people are rounding things off there? It seemed like less than 20% by $1 or $2 per item.
We'd have to double check that.
I would have to double check that, but it would be a 20% discount. So
Okay, definitely
it
20%.
is definitely a 20% discount. So if those are off by a dollar, we will recheck that and assure that it's 20%.
All right, thank you. And I have another question if somebody wants to go ahead of me. Oh, and now don't we have students in the mascot clubs that are subsidized through the Department of Health and Welfare?
I would ask, yes, Natalie Wilcox can speak to that a little bit more clearly, but yes, we do.
Yeah, so would this impact them at all? I mean, if they're getting subsidized, well, if it's getting paid by someone else, I wonder how that might affect them, or if that's been considered.
I'm going to ask Director Wilcox to answer that question, if you
All
don't
right,
mind.
thank you. Thank you for coming up.
We have students who are receiving DES,
Mhm.
and the rates that we receive from the state are the rates that those families are charged. And they do meet our rates.
Oh, so if we raise our rates, they're going to meet it.
They do.
That's what I was worried about. All right, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any other? Mrs. Christensen?
I too was concerned about the increase to, especially our staff members, because I know that our teachers are always hit so hard, and for those that have very young children, it was a significant increase. And I know, as one of the comment cards had said with Miss Mahler had indicated, is there any possible way to subsidize? But I think I asked similar questions, and Dr. Bell gave me a really good explanation on laws and what we can do. So Dr. Bell's.
Yeah, just to clarify, we do give a 20% discount. And if we go beyond that, we are looking at taxable, what was the word I used again? Taxable benefit. So we have to consider that as well. And it becomes a taxable benefit for those employees. Ms. Berrigan, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, it could go that way, or it could be considered a gift of public funds from the Office of the Auditor General. They don't set a specific threshold about a particular discount amount, but we know that other districts run the 20% range, and so we are in better company when we stay consistent with other districts in this regard.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mrs.
Just
Christensen?
one final comment. Just I know it will be a hardship for some people, but we have to remember that we cannot run these programs in a deficit. We've kept prices low for a number of years, and we're losing money. And so this is why we're not just trying to increase to raise money or hurt individuals, but this is a necessity. Mhm.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Greenberg?
Yes, I mean, Mrs. Case would probably say this if she was here, as she and I have been on the board for a while. In past years, the community ed has contributed significantly to the PVUSD budget as a whole. And the fact that we are now at a point where we are facing a deficit situation, we really cannot stay in that situation. And I think none of us are, thrilled to be doing this, but I think it becomes a necessity.
Thank you, Mrs. Greenberg. And I feel the same way. I asked all kinds of questions. Can we give teachers a bigger discount? Is there anything we can do? I personally know what kind of a hardship this will put on community members, our staff, but I also understand right now we need to be making sound financial decisions, and this is not a decision I want to make. This is not an easy decision, but it is one that must be made. And as a district, we really need to focus on being financially responsible no matter how hard the decisions are. Are there any other comments? Okay, let's take a vote then. All those in favor? Oh,
Isn't this the second reading? There's been-
for approval.
Oh, just that, okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Not for
Yeah.
the
So
third reading, right?
just two.
Just two, I thought there were three. Oh, well, thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Trying to make sure I know what's going on.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is item H7, Dr. Bales.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Baker, governing board members, cabinet, and guests. This one's exciting because this is a long-awaited intergovernmental agreement with the city of Phoenix regarding some construction for safety issues down on Shea Boulevard. Ms. Berrigan.
Thank you, Dr. Bales and President Pro Tem Baker. We are very excited about this. And it is my understanding that this has been a topic of conversation even before my time here with the district. We now have a proper and appropriate solution to provide safety for our students and parents in the area. You know, Shea is a very busy street, and this will be a great opportunity for us. The City of Phoenix is also excited to be able to provide this and work with us on this. They have shared with me that they believe this will be done before the 23-24 school year. I hate promising any construction project to be done by any timeline. So just know that's pending any strange things that may or may not come up during the construction period, but we hope to have it in place before next school year.
So just so you know, when they mean a long-awaited hybrid beacon, they're talking about what we affectionately refer to as a hawk light.
Mhm.
And we have these around the district. The most prominent one is on Greenway, right in front of Horizon High School. So this is something that would be similarly installed. And Ms. Berrigan, would you please remind our governing board the funding source for this project? Because we are paying the city of Phoenix about $200,000, and then they are also spending money for additional Shea Boulevard project. But would you remind us about this funding source?
Yep, the funding source for this project is Adjacent Ways. Adjacent Ways, maybe only Ms. Greenberg is familiar with, but you all will become familiar with it when you adopt a budget for next school year. And Adjacent Ways is an opportunity for school districts to address any needs that are adjacent to the school district related to safety, safe ingress and egress from the school site. Generally, we see a lot of fire lane projects each year for our district. Usually we're doing about $1 million in fire lane repaving or repainting, but a hawk light is something, and even stoplights can be considered in the Adjacent Ways budget. And that is something we can levy our local taxpayers for. We don't abuse that, and there are very strict guidelines related to that. So this project's also been approved by the Arizona School Facilities Board as required by any project over $50,000. So that took a little bit of additional time. We were hoping to get it sooner, but here we go.
Thank you, Mrs. Berrigan. We don't have any comment cards, so may I have a motion to approve resolution number 533, an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Phoenix for the design, construction, and installation of a pedestrian hybrid beacon at Shea Boulevard near 28th Street.
So moved.
Any board member wishing to make a comment? Okay, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. You have made Mr. Appleman and his community very happy.
He gets a lot of phone calls.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda item, H8, Dr. Bales.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Baker, governing board members, cabinet, and guests. Tonight, we recommend to approve the replacement of 4 vehicles at end of life. A special thank you to our district voters who approved the district additional assistance override that supports these replacements. To further explain and present the recommendation, Ms. Berrigan.
Thank you, Dr. Bales. President Pro Tem Baker, we do need some additional replacement vehicles for some of our white fleet. Our district additional assistance override that was approved in 2019 by our community supports approximately $400,000 in white fleet vehicle needs each year. This doesn't quite get us there, but we will have needs in future years as well. Our white fleet vehicles are generally going to be from our maintenance department, but we do have some other white fleet vehicles as well as a food service truck, and food service will be contributing a portion of those expenditures for their new truck as well.
Thank you, Mrs. Berrigan. I do not have any public comment cards, so may I have a motion to approve purchase from current cooperative contract CTR 059316 for various vehicles for district sites?
So moved.
Any board members wishing to make a comment? Mrs. Christensen?
I have a question. So the refrigerated trucks, are those to transport the food to the schools? And I just need some more information on that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. The refrigerated trucks are to transport food to schools, also for pickup of food on occasion when we may need something as well. So it's really for the transportation needs of food service.
Think of the milkman delivery.
Milkman. And do we have several for all, or do these individuals go to all of our 40+ schools? And
Yeah, the food and nutrition department has a couple of drivers that transport. If anybody's looking for a position, I think one of them is vacant, so.
Okay, I'll look at applying for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Christensen. Mr. Pantera?
Just a question. I mean, I'm for this, but when we're talking about vehicles in the future and getting new vehicles for the district, are we considering the electric option of vehicles? Is that something that's been investigated? I'm just wondering.
We have started to explore that. There are some pretty expensive options out there on the EV side. And right now, one would say, how about buses? But they cost significantly more to purchase. And so there's a few hoops that I think that we have to consider before we go down that route. But we're always looking at options.
Oh, good. I'm glad you're looking at those anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda, we have H9, Dr. Bales.
President Pro Tem Baker, governing board members, cabinet guests, tonight we present for approval the award for an invitation for bid for painting products and services. Ms. Berrigan.
Thank you, Dr. Bales and President Pro Tem Baker. This invitation for bid was issued through OneGPA with our district as the lead entity. This is a rebid of an existing contract that is due to expire. This is a cooperative contract that can be used by other members of the OneGPA cooperative. Generally, that's school districts. An IFB allows for the bidding of similar items, and the award is based on the cost. The bid includes a listing of well-known paint manufacturers as well as a listing of painting service providers for a total of 7 vendors. The district's interior and exterior paint projects are typically procured through this contract. These firms submitted proposals deemed advantageous to the district and OneGPA. The contract term is 1 year with the option to renew for 4 additional years. Annual spend projections listed on the board memo of $500,000 are based on prior year totals. The district is not seeking authorization to make a purchase at this time. This approval is a required piece of the procurement process in order to establish a contract with these firms that will remain available for future use. All purchases that exceed $150,000 threshold will be brought to the board for final approval. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mrs. Berrigan. First, may I have a motion to approve to award the invitation for bid IFB 23-11 PV for painting products and services?
So moved.
Thank you. Any board member wishing to make a comment? Mrs. Christensen?
Yes, I just wanted to thank Mrs. Berrigan for answering a ton of my questions this week. And on these items, it's a big learning curve to try to understand all of the buckets of finance. And I've been studying, I've bought books and looked at all kinds of different things. So I just wanted to thank you for your thorough explanation of these things. And again, as everybody knows, I really want to be fiscally responsible for our district. And through the conversations with Dr. Bells and you assured me that we do our due diligence. We don't just put these vendors in this group. You have a whole team of individuals that look at these to make sure that we're not being overpriced. Is that correct?
Yes. Thank you. I too want to be fiscally responsible.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda, H10, Dr. Bales.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Baker, Governing Board members, Cabinet, and guests. And tonight we present for approval the renewal contract for Public Affairs and Governmental Relations Consulting. With more than 77 bills already introduced this legislative session, these services help us track, understand, and shape education policy through the PV lens. Ms. Berrigan.
Thank you, Dr. Bales and President Pro Tem Baker. This cooperative contract was originally awarded by the board last year on February 10th of 2022 to a total of 5 firms. The purpose is to establish contracts with qualified consultants to provide public affairs, government relations, and consulting services on local, state, and federal issues. The initial term of the contract was for a year with the option to extend for 4 additional 1-year renewals. Conditions for renewal of the contract include, but are not limited to, control contract usage, satisfactory performance of services during the preceding contract term, ability to continue to provide satisfactory services, continued adherence to the contract requirements, and continued competitive prices for the services provided under the contract. It is the district's standard practice to take all annual contract renewals for board approval. Only 4 of the 5 firms chose to renew for year 2 of this contract. Amber Integrated opted for non-renewal, therefore the firm was removed from the list. The purchasing department works with 1GPA to send renewal notices to the list of awarded vendors. Once the contract is renewed, entities who wish to do business with any of these firms will use properly issued purchase orders to establish contracts. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mrs. Berrigan. We have 1 comment card on this. Melissa Schwartz, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening again. Oh, you're going to start my time, aren't you? There's a lot of room for confusion and misunderstanding regarding the Arizona legislative process when interpreting legislation that comes out of the Arizona State Legislature. The volume and complexity of bills each legislative session, the process of taking an idea and turning it into law is a very complicated one. Already this session, Arizona lawmakers have filed more than 800 bills and more than 60 memorials or resolutions approaching nearly 1,000 pieces of legislation. And there's likely more to come with the House bill introduction deadline still a few days away. There are real consequences for students when leaders are overconfident in their regulatory policy, tax policy, education policy, and their expertise. The consequences are especially high when spreading misinformation, adding confusion to an already confusing educational landscape that comes with high stakes to the tune of billions of dollars. Think of the AEL. Students are not better off when those making decisions that affect our daily lives and their future do not fully understand the context and impact of education policies and funding they advocate for or against. Understanding the climate, timing, context, and the impact of new and existing legislation becomes quickly a full-time job, a job that our district leaders, stakeholders, governing board members cannot take on by themselves because, well, they already have full-time jobs. Public and private sector nonprofits, corporations, government bodies all benefit from the experience and expertise provided by public affairs firms because they understand the very real impact public policy has on their mission and their goals. What does a public affairs and government relations consulting firm do? It's their job to understand and relay the impact of legislation to their clients by advising about the legislative process, following and tracking proposed bills, and determining their impact. Serving as a liaison between organizations and lawmakers to share feedback regarding proposed legislation. The legislature sets the budget for school districts. The legislature passes laws that affect parents, students, and staff at school districts. Understanding how laws in the state budget will impact the school community is critical for planning and to meet organizational goals. Relying on experts to help answer questions and concerns about public policy is both reasonable and responsible and allows for proactive problem solving and planning. We've already heard a governing board member inaccurately speak on the AAL in public this week. We have 3 new board members, and their individual knowledge on Arizona legislative process is unlikely to be strong enough to do without expert guidance. It is with this knowledge I encourage the board to renew the existing consulting contract. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve to renew the existing PV contract 22-06 PV for public affairs and governmental relations consulting?
So moved.
Any board member wishing to make a comment? Okay.
I'd like to make a comment.
Oh, okay, Mr.
I mean,
Pantera.
it's really critical. I agree with what some of the things I've heard, but, you know, if we didn't do this, there's other groups out there that are hiring their own people to go against some of the things we believe in here. You know, it behooves us to fight back with them with the same kind of weapons they're using against us. Just want to say that about that.
Thank you, Mr. Pantera.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Greenberg?
As someone who has worked in this arena privately, not, I shouldn't say worked, but who has advocated and has been a member of our legislative network and has worked with the group that we are recommending approval. I know the value of not just having a group, but having this particular group working with us. And, you know, Dr. Bales has said it before, and we've heard it from his predecessors. He has other things to do with his time, and serving as a full-time lobbyist on our behalf is not one of them that will use his talents most wisely. And being fiscally responsible by having an outside firm help, I believe, is the route we should go.
Thank you, Mrs. Greenberg. Any other comments? Mrs. Christensen?
Point of information. I want to get clarification on this vote. Are we voting only for the approval and to continue and the dollar amount, or the way that the committee is currently set up?
We're voting for the contract renewal and the dollar amount.
Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion passes unanimously with not unanimously. Motion passes with 3 ayes and 1 nay. Next is the acceptance of 2022 audit reports. Dr. Bales.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Baker, Governing Board members, Cabinet, and guests. And tonight, Ms. Berrigan will provide a brief overview of the 2022 audit reports and a recommendation to publicly accept these reports as required by statute. Ms. Berrigan.
Thank you, Dr. Bales, President Pro Tem Baker, and governing board members. I do have for you tonight a presentation on our external audit. We will review the purpose, scope, and the results of the annual financial audit. We'll go over the requirements, the process, the reports, and the results. We have several audit requirements, starting with Arizona Revised Statute 15914, which requires school districts that have an M&O budget of more than $2 million annually to have an annual financial statement audit, as well as the completion of the Uniform System of Financial Records Compliance Questionnaire. Additionally, districts who spend more than $750,000 of federal revenues must contract for a federal single audit. And in spring of 2021, the Arizona legislature passed legislation requiring all governing boards to publicly accept these audits through a roll call vote. So you'll notice that we'll do a roll call vote at the end of this. And finally, the districts must upload these files to various places, which include the Arizona Department of Education, and provide them to the county superintendent's office. We also post links to them on our website in continued efforts to provide financial transparency for our district. Our process starts with the procurement of the external audit contract, and fiscal year 22 was the first year of that contract. Then we send our financial data out of our financial system, basically our general ledger of all of our inputs and outputs throughout the year, our revenue and expenditures, and send that off to our auditors. They then review those and send back audit requests to the district for field work. And that is when our teams gather all of the paperwork that they want to see to review at their time here. They come here to complete the field work after the staff have prepared that documentation. And that is the first round of audit, usually in the July or August timeframe. And then we start it all over again in October or November, and they come out for the second half of the audit. So that's why it says repeat as that last bullet there. We get to do it again with them. I will note that our audits have decreased in time recently. They over the last couple of years, they would be here for 5 days in August timeframe and for 5 days again in the October, November timeframe, and we're now down to 3 days in August and anywhere between 2 and 4 days for the final audit in October. And the reason for that is our staff have gotten to understand what is necessary for our auditors. They get that all prepared ahead of time, and that takes a lot less time for the auditors to be here, and our auditors appreciate that. That allows them more time to focus on the actual audit work and preparing financial statements. So the audit reports we issue are first a communication to governance, then the comprehensive annual financial report, which I think you all have received a fat copy of and read every single page of 170 pages. Excellent. Then we have the single audit reporting package, which is the one I mentioned that's required for districts that spend over $750,000 in federal funds, and we certainly have that. And finally, the Uniform System of Financial Records Compliance Questionnaire. That's for the state of Arizona. In our communication to governance letter, we were able to state that there are no difficulties encountered in performing the audit, and this comes from Heinfeld and Meach, our auditors. There were no disagreements with management. It's slightly funny phrasing, but this is how auditors speak, and these are good words from auditors. Management has provided all of the required representations, and Heinfeld and Meach complied with their independent audit requirements. All very good news. The next report is the annual comprehensive financial report that Ms. Christensen shared a copy of, about 170 pages. This here is just a summary of some of those pages, including the management's discussion and analysis and some of our financial statements and statistical tables. For the single audit reporting package, that first bullet is actually the name of a full report, so I won't say all of those words. You can certainly read them there. The important part is the sub-bullet under there, which says that no significant deficiency or material weaknesses were identified in financial statements or internal controls over major programs. We had a finding there in years past, and last year we're able to complete that finding that had been on there for 5 years, and we continued this year not to have a finding here. And then on the next report, they state
And
that-
Ms. Bergen, just
Yes.
to clarify, that audit, that single item for 5-year deficiency was solved when we upgraded our software system for human resources and financial management. So that was an expense and a very long endeavor to implement, but one that paid off in the end.
It certainly paid off, and I'll share something else in a moment that has that represents that really truly paying off in addition to that point that Dr. Bales made. But the auditors have stated for this next report that in their opinion, Paradise Valley Unified School District complied in all material respects with the compliance requirements referred to that could have a direct and material effect on each of its major federal programs for fiscal year 22. Then in the Uniform System of Financial Records Compliance Questionnaire put together by the Office of the Auditor General annually, we have those documents in compliance, and the areas reviewed include those listed there, starting with budget, cash receipts, so on and so forth. This year, or for fiscal year 22, I should say, we only had one minor non-compliance item that was noted. Last year, we had 10. The year prior to that, we had 18. So we have significantly decreased those. And to Dr. Bales' point from earlier, that is because we have moved to the Visions financial software, and it is a much better system for school district finances. So we are in year 3 of using Visions. So that means we are at 99% compliance. That's pretty darn good. I think that's an A+. Those audit results, in addition to the comprehensive annual financial report, were issued on time in order for us to meet the ASBO International and GFOA submission deadlines. So we are able to receive those awards, as well as to meet our continuing bond disclosure deadline of February 1st. Continuing bond disclosure means that if you have any outstanding bonds, we are required to submit to what's called EMMA, all of our financial statements, and that means that anybody who's invested in our bonds can go into EMMA and look at our financial statements. They know that's where they go to look at our information. Also, all of our required reports have been issued already to our oversight agencies, something that the Finance Department and our internal auditor is proud of because those deadlines aren't until March 31st, and we have them all done with the Arizona Auditor General, the County School Superintendent, and the Federal Clearinghouse. So if anybody is wondering if districts are transparent with their finances, I would point them to this presentation. And I want to say a huge thank you to these people, very sincerely and deeply. They work very hard all year round, and in particular when it comes time for audit. That's Vanessa Shapiro, who's our Director of Finance, Kathy DeStefano, our Internal Auditor, Eva Kayas, our Director of Purchasing, Rob Deathridge, who's responsible for our average daily membership numbers, the whole Finance Department, Purchasing Department, Technology, they are audited in some pieces as well, and finally our Human Resources Department, who have a portion of the audit. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mrs. Berrigan. May I have a motion for acceptance of the 2021-2022 fiscal year audit report as presented?
So moved.
Any board member wishing to make a comment or questions? Okay. Ms. Chisholm, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mrs. Baker,
Aye.
Mrs. Greenberg,
Aye.
Mrs. Christensen,
Aye.
Mr. Pantera.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda, we have acceptance of gifts and donations. We have actually quite a few donations. I'm just going to call out a couple. Desert Cove Elementary School received $1,000 from Desert Cove PTO for calming items for SEL classes. Echo Mountain Intermediate School received $1,000 for their school store from Dorito Partners. They received $3,000 for rewards, incentives, and prizes from John Saya and Tanner Shipman. And Echo Mountain Primary School got $10,000 from Angel Corrades and Jeff Corrades for their site discretionary fund. At Horizon High School, we had a $1,000 donation from Arthur Gallagher for their band and music department, as well as $1,000 for boys golf from Thunderbirds Foundation. Paradise Valley High School received $1,500 for their Trojan Grill from the PV Schools Education Foundation. Pinnacle Peak Preparatory School received $1,500 from Country Financial CC Services for their art program. Shadow Mountain High School received $17,829.30 from their Matador Parent Teacher Club for the AFJROTC program, and Thunderbirds Foundation also donated $1,000 for their boys golf. Sonoran Sky Elementary received $1,000 for their site discretionary fund from Cave Creek Rodeo Days. And so may I have a motion for acceptance of gifts and donations, please?
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is items for discussion. Dr. Bales.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Baker, Governing Board members, Cabinet guests. And tonight, Dr. Corson will provide an explanation of a small revision to Governing Board policy regarding admissions of students in foster care for first reading. Dr. Corson.
Good evening, President Pro Tem Baker, Governing Board members, Dr. Bales, Cabinet, and guests. Tonight is a first reading for revision to policy JFABDA, admission of students in foster care. This policy is being updated to conform with the law, which requires collaboration among schools, child welfare agencies, and the Arizona Department of Education. In addition, the law requires notifying ADE of the district's point of contact for children in foster care. PV Schools' point of contact for children in foster care is our special populations social worker. This policy also updates definitions related to children in foster care. I'll be bringing this policy back to the governing board for a second reading on February 23rd, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions.
Any questions on the board? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Corson. Before we adjourn, I would like to remind you that the next regular board meeting will be held on Thursday, February 23rd, 2023 at 7 p.m. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Got it.